She didn't commit fraud. She didn't lie on her form. She didn't make anything up, and she didn't lie about anything. But DWP took one look at her bank statement and they cut her PIP because of this one thing. Now, this one thing that they saw, that they flagged within her bank statements, could be the very same thing that many of you are completely ignoring in your bank statements. Now stay with me, because by the end of this video you are going to know exactly what it was, why DWP were looking for it, what it meant, and how she got herself out of the hot water that she got herself in completely innocently, and what you need to do right now to make sure that they don't come looking for this thing in your bank statements. So let me tell you exactly what happened. It was a disabled lady. I'm not going to disclose her identity for obvious reasons. It was a completely disabled person. She'd been claiming PIP for quite a few years, has a very serious disability as well. And then completely out of nowhere, she gets notification on her account with a letter that they had uploaded saying that they are doing a claim review. Now, the claim review was actually on her universal credit, on the universal credit side, but this went deeper into waters on the PIP side. So what was the first thing that they saw in her bank statements? Well, her mother had been sending her money regularly. Wasn't a lot of money, it was a few £100s to help her meet the shortfall between what she was earning, her universal credit, and her PIP. All added up together, it wasn't meeting the extra that she needed to pay for her rent, so her mother was bridging that gap. To her, it was just her mother, a family member, helping her out in her moment in need. To DWP, it was undeclared income. And this is what I need you to understand right now, because of the world that we are living in. Now, as many of you know, particularly if you have watched this playlist here, in 2025 and 2026, the government brought in the FEAR Act, the Fraud, Error and Recovery Act. A big part of that is this. It is we call it the EVP. It's DWP's eligibility verification powers that have come into play to support that. Now, here's what it means in plain English. DWP can now send an eligibility verification measure to your bank. It's a notice, and your bank is legally required to respond. And when they get that, they then have to look at your account and flag anything that matches DWP's criteria on the information they've been gathering from you when you submit your bank statements, alongside what you're declaring on your forms and every time you have any interaction or communication with them whatsoever. Now, right now, without you giving your bank statements to DWP, they cannot actually see all of your transactional data, your spending data, what you're spending your money on, if you bought a cheeky takeaway, if you've booked a holiday in Spain. But here's what they can see. They can see your account balance, and when it goes above or near a certain threshold, that starts to trigger red flags, and regular, undeclared, unexplained income drops, or even one-off income drops, joint account balances, inter-account transfers, transfers from other accounts, even from overseas, start to look a little bit dodgy. Now, here's a really important bit that most people are missing. This started just with universal credit, but is extended to pension credit and pensioners, ESA, LCWRA, and now PIP. Now, the argument they're using is we need to check that you are eligible for your universal credit, and as an upper tribunal court have already ruled, if you've watched this video here, that is actually incorrect, but DWP are still stating it to people anyway. The other excuse they are using is to check to make sure that you're not over the £16,000 ceiling, because if you are, that would make you completely not entitled to claim universal credit. But in this particular case of this PIP claimant, what she was also spending her money on were regular holidays away. And on her PIP declaration, she had stated that her anxiety was so bad that she couldn't leave the house. Now, I want to talk to you about this. I'm going to call it the gift trap. Because lots of people in the comments are telling me, yeah, it doesn't matter, the bank statements don't matter to me because, you know, I'm working, or in this particular case, they were working a little bit and they were also claiming universal credit. But the bank statements also tell them a lot about you and what you're doing in your daily life, or even, you know, periodically in your life. And that can trigger investigations if your declarations of your activity and what you say you can do and you can't do don't match up with all sorts of declarations, but obviously PIP as well. And with PIP going to be integrated through the health element of universal credit, this is going to be a big problem, because universal credit is a money act. And because it is a money act, it is reigned by different legal criteria compared to what PIP is. Now, the gift trap is what is catching out a lot of people, because they think it's just being given to me, I haven't earned it, it's just to help me out because I'm currently in a place of hardship. And you know how sometimes family can help family. Your dad's going to send you 100 quid. Maybe his mum sends you 200 quid. Maybe a sister helps you out as well. Someone pays your electricity bill. Someone might even have paid some of your rent for you to help you out. To you and me, that's just people helping you out. However, to DWP, that's an unrecognised, undocumented deposit. It's an irregularity, it's a red flag. And once you're flagged, it triggers a review. And in some cases, banks are completely freezing accounts. I kid you not. Now, that aside, I think what is really scary here is a system that actually does the initial scan is automated. It's an algorithm. It's a computer set criteria to recognize patterns. And quite often people with disabilities and people with mental health conditions in particular do have sometimes very irregular patterns of conduct. An example, you might suffer with depression and then radically start spending more than you normally would because you're having a bit of a bad time. There are many examples I could give you about this, and I don't want anyone in the comments making comments like, meh, if you're on benefits, you shouldn't be spending anyway. When people are suffering, when people have mental health, they don't actually think of those things, I might add. But these banks as well are using software to identify patterns, and some of them are reporting directly to DWP before the eligibility verification notices are even sent. Now, DWP have said to the ICO, oh, don't worry, a human is going to review this. But we all know from the upper tribunal, they say themselves that DWP's decisions should not be taken at face value. And we also know from DWP's own data that 7 out of 10 PIP appeals are won in the claimant's favour, on the exact same evidence that was already in the hands of DWP. Now, PIP tribunals seem to be a pretty okay place sometimes. They're pretty happy and quite confident about overturning incorrect DWP decisions. But if you go and watch this playlist here, This is actually commentary on my own case by different reporters on how I caught not only DWP out on literal legal and procedural errors, but also employment tribunals as well, which, when you put the two together, is disadvantaging a disabled person. So where is our protection today in 2026 when you have an organisation as big as DWP whose mission statement is to protect the most vulnerable people of society at the most vulnerable time in their life alongside an employment tribunal, and the two are expecting disabled employees to go to work, and when they do, these types of things are just not working together to protect the benefits of the disabled person? What do you do? Well, let me give you a couple of tips. Number one, make sure you note everything, write it down, keep a very good record. You have to become very good at record taking when you are dealing with the Department of Work and Pensions. We have all seen in the comments how all sorts of journal messages and pieces of data are going missing from accounts, particularly when you raise a complaint against them. I will be the first person to put my hand up and say, as somebody that worked there, the minute I started making complaints about the things they were doing wrong for me, it was like the bully brigade got together, having a party, big time, trying to pin the joke and anything else they could on me. I don't really think claimants are amiss from this. On the bank statement side, try to avoid balance spikes. If your account suddenly has more money in it than it would do normally, and it's not something that you can perhaps explain very, very well, the system notices it. Things even like backdated payments, or when your employer pays you out of the normal time period, which I know is an absolute bummer for so many people, because universal credit is paid on a month-by-month basis, and it is so assessed on a month-by-month basis. And that is one that used to catch a lot of people out. The third one is joint accounts. I have seen quite a few comments saying, what about joint accounts? If you share a bank account with a partner, whatever they've got in their account and whatever they're doing in their account is also going to reflect upon you. The system looks at the balance, they look at the household income, particularly if you're on universal credit. Now, to end, I'm going to talk to you about somebody I'm going to call Customer 23. Now, this actually came out through a Freedom of Information service. It was a battle between DWP and the Disability News Service. And DWP had been fighting very, very hard to keep the information about Customer 23 and what they've been doing with it very much. So in 2020 to 2021, DWP conducted internal checks on processes relating to reviews on claims that had gone very badly wrong. In one of those cases, Customer 23, a PIP claimant, suffered very badly. Now, following the death of a PIP claimant, the internal process of review was conducted by DWP. And out of 240 similar claim reviews, it was alleged that because of how DWP were just stopping people's PIP money, those people were having serious harm or experiencing serious harm, and in some cases, how can we say it, deciding to, not be here anymore. Now, what the internal review found on how DWP were conducting those reviews was that it was not of the required standard, and that not all of the available evidence that had been submitted to DWP by claimants was being included or even closely scrutinised. when decisions were made. Now, to try and save their rather shady skin, the DWP then commissioned a private audit into the PIP reviews, or the review of the PIP claims and of the assessments, but then ironically refused to release that same data. So let's just let this sink in for a moment. A claimant died or was very seriously harmed in some cases. An audit was done, and DWP will not show to anyone what they found. It's not really encouraging honesty and transparency, is it? And this is the very same system that is now being given new automated powers to check your bank account, review your bank statements and your claims alongside it. This is why expecting organisations like this to manage your data and your evidence is really quite a risky thing, I think. And why you making sure you're on top of your own evidence, whatever it is, whatever condition you've got, is not an optional choice that you make. Make it mandatory for yourself. Be in charge of your own information, all of it. Okay, I'm going to end this video here. And if you want me to, I'm going to do a follow-up video about what you can potentially do if you're in this sort of a situation, or if you feel you're being unfairly flagged or even harassed. And by the way, if DWP are watching, let's not forget that I won unlawful harassment against you in a court of law, and I can see in the comments that many claimants are feeling rather harassed as well. Quite frankly, I think whoever it is that manages that organisation should actually start doing some training on how to actually conduct themselves in a public office and spend more time in supporting claimants instead of wasting taxpayers' money on trying to, behave like they're part of MI5. Because heaven forbid, nobody, and I'm certainly not happy about paying my tax so that you can interrogate a disabled person for 1 hour to find out why they spent £2.58 at one stop. Absolutely absurd. But this is the world we are living in right now.